gosh. Well, thanks for joining, guys. Let's, I guess, dive in and start with a simple meditation. And start by focusing on our breath, that place at the tip of our nostril where the air is coming in and out. Kind of get our minds into neutral. And then let's bring to mind our motivation for being here. You can have lots of smaller goals, but as much as possible, if you can try to put your mind on your wish to help other human beings. And making a decision to use this time towards that goal. I'm going to do the refuge prayer, first in English and then twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By practicing giving and other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all beings. Sangye chodang soki chodnam la, jangchu bodu dagi kyatsu chi, dagi chenyan gipe sonom ki, jola penche sangye jupa shu. Sangye chodang soki chodnam la, jangchu bodu dagi kyatsu chi, dagi chenyan gipe sonam ki, jola penche sangye rupa shu. So hello again. Thank you for being here. I guess before we kind of start, I thought I'd open it up for the crowd to chime in if there's anything, I don't know, it could be something that came up for you during the week, something related to the last couple of weeks, pretty much anything. But I think it's good to kind of start openly to see if you have anything that you want to share or chat about. Okay, in that case, we'll dive right in. So, we've the first class, we did some Tonglen and focusing on ourselves as an object of meditation. And then last week, a little bit on, 8 worldly dharmas and kind of how those work to really sabotage us so ironic, that when we think it's what we want, giving us what we want, and it actually undermines all of that. I guess that's why we're here, right? That's why we're in samsara, and that's why we're also in a class like this. We're in samsara because we're doing the wrong things to get what we want, and we're in this class to figure out how to undo that. But I thought it might be nice today to kind of go through, because we've also sort of skirted around, and I know, Michael, you mentioned it a few times, and I think the 8 verses are such an amazing, never get old, and chock full of meaning, and really a great sort of blueprint on how to practice as we're walking around encountering other living beings and the variety of circumstances that we can encounter. So I thought maybe to kind of go through those one at a time, and pause afterwards to see if there's any thoughts, or maybe we just, so actually I'm curious. So I was thinking either we discuss and then do just a very brief meditation, but maybe it's better to just read the verse and kind of let that sit with us for a minute or two, and then maybe have a little discussion, or worst case scenario, me just blah blahing about that particular verse. So is that okay? All right, great. So there's lots of different translations, and I actually on the Lama Yeshe, and they're all pretty similar. They all feel very similar. It's Geshe Longri Tangpa was the originator of these verses, but I thought especially nice to take a translation from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and there's one on the lamayeshe.com at the Wisdom Archive site. So I thought it would be, I just thought it'd be very nice to go through his translation. So I'll start with the first verse. It's determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. I shall hold them most dear at all times. So maybe let's just take a minute and think about that, with a determination to hold all sentient beings more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. So, there's 2 parts there. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings. So, we determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings. And I thought, that's interesting. That's worth discussing, right? Normally we're thinking, how do we benefit all sentient beings, wanting to become the kind of being, wanting to get the qualities, achieve all the realizations on the path so that we can benefit all of them. But here we're talking about obtaining benefit from them. And again, I don't want to force anyone to talk, but also kind of want to just open it up. Does that stand out to you? Do you have any thoughts about that first bit? And actually, I was going to send this to you, Michael, to kind of share. And then I didn't, so forgive me. It'd be nice if I could, I probably could just share my screen. Can I do that? All right.
Shayla will have to make you co-host.
Done.
All right.
And Bonnie, while you're doing that, I mean, I've actually been thinking about this a lot recently, and it's because you mentioned one of the, I actually know of three kind of different-ish translations, and you mentioned one of them. It says, because one of them I know says for the benefit of others. One of them says from, I get the benefit from others. And then a year or so ago, maybe probably not a year ago, 6 months or so ago, I sent you another one that's an online one. And it says, with the determination to accomplish the highest welfare for all sentient beings.
Yes.
Who surpasses even a wish-fulfilling jewel, I will hold them supremely dear.
Yes.
And it mentioned them getting benefit or me getting benefit. It's me, and I've been really struck by that. And I've been thinking about writing two people I know who are Tibetan scholars. One's an old guy who's been translating Tibetan since the 70s, and one's a much younger guy, to try to figure out which of those is correct. And
I love it. They're all correct.
Yeah,
and
that's it. They probably all are correct, but.
So it's so amazing. You know, I had a conversation, and just very super briefly on the idea of translation. So many years ago, I was having this conversation with someone, and they were actually a scholar, like an academic scholar in Sanskrit and Tibetan. And they were kind of being critical on a particular teacher's, the way that they translated something. And, you know, it really stuck with me. And the conversation with that person, I thought, you know, again, it's like a translation is pointing at something. It is not the thing itself. And so I guess, you know, I would sort of look, and that's why I'm like, okay, that's why we want teachers who have realizations. That's why we want someone who actually embodies these things, right? Because they maybe can point us a little bit better. But then also there's all of our own sort of biases, and the reality is we all different translations will appeal to different people. Years ago, when I used to sort of help run a group center in Austin, we went through Guided Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and I got 3 translations for everyone, and we went verse by verse through the different translations, because inevitably, and so I guess I would just recommend, instead of trying to identify what's the better translation, is really look at, because what you're doing, Michael, is this is what we need to do. It is the grappling with the translations, and what are the differences, and what do they mean to me, and why would they say it this way versus this way? You know, why all these 3? And I think, I don't remember if it was Berzin Archives, I think was maybe the one that you sent me. I can't remember. But like, they're all so fantastic, and really to take any text that is like a key critical text, and to actually go through it line by line with multiple translations is such a amazing practice. But now looking at this, so like, right, one is like to help other sentient beings, the other is to obtain the greatest possible benefit from them, and the third one is to achieve the highest goal, right, or the highest good, which is all of the above. And I think, you know, it's really, I think it's helpful, and maybe, you know, who knows why in the amazing mind of Lama Zopa Rinpoche that he would choose to translate it this way. And I think I've actually seen another translation of his. Well, actually, I can just, well, I don't want to toggle if I'm sharing the screen. But on Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archives, there's another translation of his that he did, I want to say in like 1980. And I think that might be subtly different too. But I would, you know, I would say for me, looking at just that first bit, it's like understanding the relationship between those things, right? So if I want to achieve the highest good, so the highest good, that would be, you know, something that a Buddha achieves. And we talked before, a Buddha has achieved all of their own goals, as well as those of others. So they've removed all of the obstacles and they don't need anything from us. And therefore they can perfectly serve us because their own needs have already been satisfied. So it's about wanting to become that, right? So on the front end, what is my opportunity? When we talk about merit and wisdom, the opportunity for us to do virtue, the opportunity for us to create the causes for enlightenment, mostly all come in relation to other sentient beings. And so in that sense, it's like interacting with them through our body, speech, and mind. We have an opportunity to accumulate merit, which is what we need to actually create the body of a Buddha. So wisdom creates the mind of a Buddha, and then virtue and merit create the physical and they say enjoyment body or paradise body of a Buddha. So first we are actually using them to obtain the benefit that we can, so obtaining the virtue that we can. And then actually the next step would be, well, I don't know, maybe it's more like two parts and then the one contains everything. The next would be, in order to help all those living beings, in order to serve all those living beings, I'm going to do this. And both are true, right? Like if I get the virtue by interacting with living beings in a way that creates the causes for me to be a Buddha, then I am going to be able to serve them perfectly, thus achieving the highest good. But it's all of that. And I think that really is, and I'm so glad that you brought up like different translations, because that really is the beauty of looking at more than one translation. It's the beauty of hearing, there's so many of these classes going on, and I think it's wonderful. Like I was actually thinking like, oh, maybe, I don't really need to be doing this. I mean, like, it's not like there's a bunch of people coming to this, but I think it's so genius. It's so helpful and so wonderful of Tutu Norbu Ling and the center to like have all of these different kinds of presentations and different discussions, because inevitably, someone will say something in a way that is going to resonate differently, or maybe penetrate, and we're all so different. And it might be, we spent hours together and it's like one thing maybe that is really of value, but that's amazing, right? Through the course of our discussion or any of the discussions that happen. So I was just really going to focus on why this translation was like that, but I think it's really, yeah. In fact, I'm thinking, oh, maybe next week I want to try to get multiple translations of something so we can kind of go through it like that. I really think it's fantastic.
Bonnie, one other thing is that you said that different translations appeal to different people. I will tell you that different translations appeal to me depending on what day of the week it is, what month of the year it is, how old I am, and even sometimes what time of the day, right? I may have met somebody because of good or bad things, right? They became my teacher, and so I need to get from them. And then I met somebody who needed help, so I need to do this for them. And then there's somebody else there, and I need to do this with them, right?
Yes.
So absolutely, it's not just different people at different times, it's me at different times, kind of like the Dr. Seuss book, My Many Colored Days.
No, absolutely. And our understanding shifts and changes too, right? So yeah, in this particular one, it's determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings. And then reading that, how fortunate. So first of all, how fortunate to even be looking at this one verse, to have ever heard or read this one verse. How amazing. And then how amazing to have this, these ideas of, even asking the question, having multiple translations. And then, who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them dear at all times. And I think I've shared this before, but this idea of wish-fulfilling jewel, just imagine that you could find something and whatever you wished for, it would give you whatever your wishes were, like no limit, not like three, not, as many wishes as you had. to find some kind of a jewel. And I guess that was like an Eastern thing, like this idea of a jewel that could have this power. But here it's more precious. It's more precious than a wish fulfillment jewel. And this goes back to that idea that they are the merit field. Other sentient beings, first of all, more precious than a wish fulfilling jewel, because if I had a wish fulfilling jewel, if you just gave, say there was such a thing. I mean, hypothetically, there's a wish fulfilling jewel and you gave it to, I don't know, your next door neighbor. What would they wish for? And it might take eons, before they even would know what to wish for, right? Like, maybe not eons, maybe we're better than that. I don't know. But I think you look at what we do and how we live and how we spend our time, there's a lot of, we're in this imperfect place because there's a lot of imperfect actions. Having said that, we have right now what we call a precious human rebirth. We have this amazing opportunity, which is sort of like a wish fulfilling jewel. We have this great opportunity where we have just the right amount of happiness, just the right amount of suffering. Our faculties are intact. We're in a place where there is Dharma and these teachings are accessible to us. So we really have this amazing opportunity. And the opportunity is to relate to other beings in a way that creates the causes for our own enlightenment. So just understanding that and understanding the preciousness of all these other sentient beings. Like, this is not something we can do without them. Our ultimate happiness is completely dependent on other sentient beings. So holding them as more precious than a wish fulfilling jewel, and holding them dear all the time. These things are, they're easy in a Dharma class. You read them and you feel it, right? It's when you go out in the world and encounter things, problems and challenges, right, that they become difficult. That's why now's the time to talk about them and meditate about them. So any other thoughts or comments on that one? Okay, so moving on to the next one. When in the company of others, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart, hold others dear and supreme. So, and yeah, I wish I had multiple translations now to just hold them up, but I think, you got one?
Yes.
Oh, I have that book. Give it to me, baby.
Wherever I am and whomever I'm with, may I view myself as the lowest of all, and from the bottom of my heart, may I cherish others and consider them supreme. That's pretty close. Yeah. It's beautiful.
What book is that?
You sent me this one.
That's what I thought. I just don't remember it being worded that way. I'm gonna have to read it again soon.
I like, I think the difference there is wherever I am, right? Wherever I am. So that, and this would just be, my commentary. I would really have to go back and check, but what comes to mind right out of it for me is, the time may come as we're on the path and we develop ourselves, and I think, a lot of these are for everyone, but they were verses that were really kept precious and kind of secret to those people who were really hardcore practitioners. So I think this is important, frankly, for those, people, beings who might be teaching others and maybe even have realization on the path, like wherever they are on the path, wherever they are in the world, and whoever they're with. So even in a situation, and I can say that having the great benefit of having met Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he would often say things that I don't know, and might have bothered some people, like seemingly self-deprecating. I'm just a Mickey Mouse llama, or, I don't know, I don't have realization, or things like that. Sometimes he would say. And I think, and in normal life, sometimes you run across people who are, false, some kind of false humility. But there's definitely this sense always that, and I think I've shared the story, the first teaching I had with him, he was hours late because he was taking care of insects. This is who he was. So like he was there to serve. He was, and when you have that mind of service and taking care, it really is holding others as supreme. And there's other teachings that kind of help with that too. Just thinking of the sheer numbers, like, okay, countless sentient beings and then me. Clearly, clearly they are more important. Clearly they should be held as supreme. And so I think just that idea of, always being one who is there to serve, and then always being able to learn from someone else. We have the idea of, like, the pot and the student, right? The pot, the student comes with a good motivation and they're open to learning. They're not like turned upside down. They're not full of themselves already. And when you approach the world, like whoever you come upon, and you have that sense of humility, like they're available to teach you. There's always something that can be learned. And then as you practice, and if you begin to practice, or tantra, or that kind of worldview, then you start to see that in a very real way, the Buddha and your lamas, inseparable, are always also available to you, and that they can come in the shape and form of someone else, right? So then it's like you're meeting, whoever this person is, and you can truly experience them and truly get the benefit of serving even a Buddha, with the right mindset, with the right understanding of how the Buddha exists, and yeah, we could really talk about that for a long time. But just to say that that's possible, that it's possible that emanation bodies are appearing to you, to me, every single day, and they're all just trying to help us. And then, well, other verses, I won't skip ahead because we'll get there. But yeah, if we understand that, then truly from the depths of our heart, we can hold others dear, and we can really hold them supreme. They are the path for us. They are the man. I didn't stop and meditate on this. We talked first. I'm sorry. I already screwed up my plan. So hopefully, I don't know if anyone wants to make a comment, or maybe we'll just stop and reflect on this verse a little bit and then open it for comments before we move forward. So again, when in the company of others, I shall always consider myself lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart, hold others dear and supreme. So, I don't know if anything comes up for anybody, anything that yeah,
For me, what's interesting about this, and this is more interesting because I know what's coming, is that this one really singles out when I am in the company of others, plural. And it doesn't mean that if I'm in one with one other person, I shouldn't do the same thing. But it really, for me, it's talking about others, because the ones that come up talk about what more, are much more implicit about saying when I find that one other person.
yeah,
Right. So this is more kind of the general, and then it's going to start funneling down and feeding into the more specific about that.
yeah.
So
The special
again, for me, it
cases.
doesn't mean I'm with one other person. It doesn't mean I should not consider myself as the lowest of the two. Right.
Yeah,
But it's
no.
really interesting the way.
And here it means others, like any others. It's more like any others. But you're right. We're going to drill into like some of the special cases, some of the really wish fulfilling, extra bonus wish fulfilling sentient beings that are out there. One thing that I didn't comment on, which probably because I know you guys have been doing this a lot, but I think it's important to talk about, what does it mean lowest of all? This is not about low self-esteem. It has nothing at all to do with that. It has nothing to do with being a valuable human being, not being less valuable. It really is just all that understanding of the benefit that our relationships with other beings provides for us, the opportunity. I think just worth saying, because I remember the first time I ever heard this teaching, there was someone in the room who really, that was really triggering, and I understand. Hopefully, discussing it, it becomes really clear kind of what the purpose is for. It's not some kind of beating yourself up or tearing yourself down. Not like that at all. Let's go to the next. Vigilant. The moment a delusion appears in my mind. There's a lot here, actually. Endangering myself and others. I will confront and avert it without delay. Vigilant. The moment a delusion appears in my mind. Endangering myself and others. I shall confront and avert it without delay. Do you have that other translation handy? I think the other one is something like, I shall firmly confront and avert, or something.
Watching my mind in all that I do with force, I may immediately drive out any mental afflictions as soon as they rise, for they ruin both myself and others. The others,
Nice.
I don't, the others part, if it's my mental affliction, why is it bothering other people?
Oh, but let's meditate on that and then talk about it. Okay, so I'd love to start with the other translation, if you don't mind.
Watching my mind in all that I do, with force may I immediately drive out any mental afflictions as soon as they arise, for they ruin both myself and others.
So before I do some blah blah, anything, any thoughts, anything come to mind?
Yeah. It makes sense. Like if I lash out in anger at somebody else, yeah.
Yeah.
Bonnie, for me, this is always one that more than any of the other verses here really directly correlates with one of the specific Lojong sayings, which is always meditate on that which provokes. And that's my favorite. That's got to be, if not my favorite, my one of my top 3 favorite Lojong sayings. Because
Yep.
okay, if I'm irritated, yeah, I could blame this other person, but what I really need to do is say, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Because then I can kind of solve, as Shayla said, my side of it. Right? It's I got to solve my side. I may not ever be able to solve the other side of it. I may not be able to. I may be able to. I may not be able to. But I certainly can work on my side.
Yeah. And well, again, these sort of lead into each other, but you're absolutely right. I mean, this idea of vigilant and like always mindful, always watchful, right? This is, the job of a Buddhist, for lack of a better thing, is really to understand, to know our minds, right? If we don't know, then we can't apply the antidote, and we can't do the things that are actually going to give us what we want. So this really understanding what motivates us, understanding what mental afflictions come. And then, they start small sometimes, right? It can start as a little bit of irritation. And then we just let those things go. And if you think, there's so much at play here, but if you think of the laws of karma, then you develop a habit, right? And then you have that irritated thought, and then that ripens as a bigger, worse thought. So it's about applying. When they say forcefully, it means, so there are forces, there are antidotes that we have as practitioners. So it means using the tools in our toolbox, right? I have, for me, I have this story which I shared because it was such a crystalline moment for me. Personally, I was really going through some challenging things, like on all different fronts of my life. Kind of, yeah, that's when it's really fun, is when they're all hitting at once in a negative way. And I had been really practicing, and I really using these antidotes. But I have to confess, I was getting that little bit of kind of feeling sorry for myself creeping in, like, why me? I'm doing all these things. And then I had like this thought, which was, oh, lamas, really, I went for refuge, and, give me a sign, like, help me, because I was feeling sort of like a victim, just in that moment, right? It had been a long stretch of practice. And I just had like what felt, so crazy to say this, felt like a self-indulgent moment of like, just like, poor me, which really isn't self-indulgent, it's miserable. But I was like, give me a sign, and I'll take my signs anywhere. So I turned on the radio, and the song that started playing was "You're So Vain," and it was like, of course, it was just so perfect, because I was focused on me. It was like me, what I'm going through, my pain, my this, and this is not, doesn't mean don't be gentle with yourself, but it's like, as I'm doing that, like, that felt terrible, shifting the focus onto others, shifting the focus onto all sentient beings, actually not indulging myself, right? Not indulging those kind of destructive thoughts. So I know I talk a lot about being gentle with ourselves, and that's important. it's also important to be the grown-up in the room, the room of your mind, right? Like put your big girl pants on. Like, we're gonna get through this. And so not allowing even those little negative thoughts to take hold in our mind. Like using the tools, using the lojong, which are the tools, to actually clear through mental afflictions. And then doing it, without delay, like seeing them for what they are, and then not allowing yourself the luxury. I mean, I hate to even say it like that, but sometimes it feels that way, right? Like I feel annoyed and I just want to like vent. We have these expressions, right? These things that we do. And so, and the other thing that's interesting is, well, this applies to me and not to someone else, because if someone else is in that place, sometimes you let them do it. And then if they're a Dharma friend, you just gently help guide them back, right? You listen, not too long, you don't feed into it, and then you gently guide them back. And same thing with our own minds. And then endangering myself and others, it's a couple things here. And you're so right. It is if I'm under those delusions, then I do things. We talk about 10 non-virtues. 4 of them are done with this thing, out of our mouth, right? So forget about even the actions that we could do, the things that we say when we're not being mindful. And here, not even anger, like subtle jealousy, right? And here's how it manifests. Like if we're really working on our minds, then we're trying to clear the fine stuff. We're probably not people who are going out there screaming and attacking people and yelling at them. We're certainly probably not physically doing anything. And even with our speech, it's probably not big, egregious things. We're not saying hateful things. We're not totally gossiping about people, but it would be those tiny, subtle little things where maybe I'm feeling a little bit of competition or a little bit of jealousy. And so then I just, by the way, accidentally say something that highlights someone else's faults or defects, right? And then, oh, but she's wonderful. But let me tell you this first, even though she's wonderful, even though she does blah, blah, blah. Those are the kind of little things. So the more we're practicing, like we're really looking and catching ourselves, like, and it, like as you've been practicing these and really familiarizing yourself with them and really working on yourself on the path, and you say something and you just feel dirty afterwards. You just feel like, why did I say that? And it's very easy to kind of like excuse yourself and yeah, we got to move on. But take a minute and there apply some force, like the 4 powers, and do a quick 4 power on that thing that you said that made you feel yucky. Like just clean it out immediately. Don't let it take hold. Because endangering others, we can hurt others. And then there's a whole other layer, which is endangering others because other sentient beings are counting on us. Like we have if you've taken Bodhisattva vows, we have an obligation to serve other living beings, no matter where we are on the path, no matter how messed up we all know the inner workings of our own minds and how totally imperfect we are. And yet there are those who are in a much worse situation and they're counting on us. And so I have a responsibility, that like really to take on that feeling. I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to maximize this hour that we're together because other sentient beings are limitless, countless sentient beings are counting on me. They're counting on us to take these teachings and to work on our own minds, to perfect ourselves, and then to help, quite frankly, to help perpetuate these teachings, to realize them so that, when I say the words, it's not just Bonnie saying blah, blah, but someone will they'll be able to tell oh, this person, they realize something, and we can be so beneficial to others. So we're really allowing not only ourselves to be swimming in the seas of samsara by not confronting our own mental afflictions, but we're also, watching our countless other sentient beings suffer as well, because we're not taking seriously the job of becoming enlightened in order to benefit them. And that's heavy, but I think we have to keep going back to that touchstone of why are we here, really, and then we have to, through experience, see how we're getting better, to kind of keep going, right? Because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. But really allowing ourselves to feel that these, we're taking refuge. These are the things that can truly help myself and others. Any thoughts or? Okay. Oh, I love. I'd love to have a bunch more translations of this one. Can you see this on your screen? I don't know how big it's appearing. It's not. Okay, good. Whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I had found a precious treasure. Whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I had found a precious treasure. Do you mind sharing the other translation?
When I see beings with a bad nature, overwhelmed by their heavy misdeeds or suffering, may I care for them as if I had discovered a jewel treasure, for they are so hard to find.
That's a pretty similar translation, right? So let's sit with that for a minute. And this one I feel like has a few things to sort of unpack. So maybe I'm just kind of starting. I want it to be open to however you want to do it. But when I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, it's that first bit. I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I had found a precious treasure. So, gosh, we have 7 minutes and this is a good one. So I think we'll have to come back to this first. And I will get a couple translations to try to do side by side kind of sharing. Because I think it's helpful. But looking at this verse and thinking about it for just a brief moment that we have, what I'd love to open it to your thoughts, your sense of it.
Bonnie, what strikes me is in the version you're showing on screen says, who are wicked in nature, a version that I have on my phone that I'm looking at, says of beings of bad nature, oppressed by negativity and sufferings. And the one that Shayla wrote talked about a sad nature. And those are all, I mean, the first, yours and mine.
It didn't say sad. What did it say,
I
Shayla?
thought it said sad nature.
Bad nature.
Is it a bad nature? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
All right. I thought it said a sad nature because that one really strikes me as very different than the other. Not that the other two aren't sad. That people have that, but it's very different. But I'm also going to say, and I don't know where I read this because I know this couldn't be an original thought, but I've always looked at this as saying, okay, I have to hold these people as such rare dear ones because they're my teachers. But now kind of going back to that very first verse where we talked about the different ways of learning this, of looking at this, I was always looking at it as I'm going to do this from them. And now I have to say, okay, why do I hold them dear? It's because I can do something for them. And I can do something with them. It has to get back to all three of those things.
All of the above, right? All of the above. And you know, I for whatever reason, I always keyed in on wicked in nature. Because it's like their nature is bad. I mean, to me, that's the antithesis of what we are typically, right? We're saying, what is your nature? Your nature is emptiness, right? So what does it mean? You know, when we see beings, so what we're talking about is appearance, right? And that is, and I think the reason that, and I don't know, you know, so this is going to be just a Bonnie thought. Why would they say it this way? Because then it sounds so inherently existing, you know, wicked nature, because that's the way it appears to us, because the reality we have is appearance. It isn't solid, objective, self-existent. It is appearances, and that is the reality. So there are beings who appear to us to be wicked in nature. And go ahead.
For me, when I see somebody making or acting out violently, it keys in for me that there's a lot going on with that individual that we don't know about. You know, maybe they're hungry, maybe they're, you know, there's so many different things that could cause those actions, those negative actions. Being wicked.
And it says overwhelmed by negative action and suffering. Like each of these verses say they are overwhelmed. Like they are in that sea of suffering. In a way that makes them manifest like this. I think the other thing that, and again, I really want to maybe start from this verse next time, because there's a lot here. This idea of I'll hold them as rare. They're rare. Hold such rare ones. And I think I've mentioned this before. They will become rare. I don't think His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or I don't think that Lama Zopa Rinpoche ever saw anyone who was just wicked in nature. bad in nature. You know, I, on the other hand, I've seen a few of those folks, right? Like, as we practice all of these verses, they will become, are you laughing at me?
Something that I can't say on while the recording is on.
But they will become rare. They will become rarer and rarer for us as we practice. And so then when we see them, actually they are, in a very real way, they are a reflection of the state of our own mind, right? Otherwise, how could that be? You know, wicked beings who are wicked in nature don't exist in a Buddha paradise. How can that be? Because their nature is not wicked, right? Because their nature is emptiness. And then as I evolve, then my outer world actually changes. This is, we literally are creating a Buddha field. So all these sentient beings, the wicked and the nice, they're all of these people who are beings, not people, beings who are populating our world now. They're all going to be manifesting there too. And how we experience them is going to be radically different, right? So they will become rarer and rarer. And then they are a precious treasure because especially as they become rarer and rarer, then they are providing us with that opportunity to finish the job, like just cleaning up our own minds based on how we're interacting. And again, we've talked about it before. It doesn't mean you don't punish them. It doesn't even mean that you don't say something, wrathful, right? But your motivation is so different, right? You take a person who's doing harmful things and the action can be, you take them and you put them in a jail cell. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. A lot of different things that can be going on in your mind as you do that, right? And so that's what we're looking at is what can I do? Wow, this hour just has completely whizzed by. And I love this. I love this because this is the grappling. This is in the trenches, looking at these things and what do they mean and thinking about them. And so we'll continue with this next week if that's good. And I'm gonna get and Michael, if you've got a couple, I have a couple. I'm gonna try to put them in one document so I can put them up there side by side and kind of see.
Yeah.
So if you guys,
I have one thing though, because you mentioned Alex Berzin, and so I looked at Alex Berzin's version of this, and it says, "Whenever I see being instinctively cruel."
well, also interesting, instinctively
Cruel. I mean, no, and Alex Berzin, he knows how to translate Tibetan.
Yeah. So, but instinct is a habit, like teasing through that, right? This is the fun. This is fun. And it's meaningful, like, because this is where we get a much more subtle, much more accurate, for lack of a better word, understanding of what these verses mean. So, wow, thank you. I just want to take a minute to dedicate. Like, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. All of us together, looking at these things and working on ourselves and struggling with these. And thank you to the Noble Wing, to the center, to all the teachers, FPMT, and every other tradition, and even those traditions that are not necessarily on the face of them Dharma, those things that help sentient beings in the ways that they are, that resonate with them and are able to help them. And may everyone who works to share the path and to cultivate the path, may they all have long, healthy lives, all of our teachers, especially His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And may the time we've spent together be totally invested in our achieving all the realizations of the path. up to and including enlightenment, and helping all sentient beings to achieve that same bliss of life. And now I want to say amen. Really, thank you. Really, really thank you. And yeah, same bat time, same bat channel next week. And we'll pick it up with verse 4, if that's okay.
Wonderful. Sounds great. Thank you.